Story 1. Pilar, I don't think they're ever coming back. My husband Noah was peeking through the blinds at our neighbor's hastily abandoned house across the street. 3 weeks ago, in the middle of the night, we heard screaming and saw Jim and his long-term girlfriend Joy, you can call us J and J, they annoyingly told me when we first met, burst out of the historic River Rock house across from us and drive away in a panic. They didn't even close the front door. The cops came, did a cursory look around the house, filed a report that no one would ever read, and left. Since then, it's been radio silent. Jim and Joy haven't returned, haven't sent a text, haven't picked up anything. It's like they'd been edited out of the film of our lives and left on the cutting room floor. Noah had become obsessed with this story since the night it happened. I had to convince him not to go check out the house after they'd first run off. He said he wanted to see what had scared them and if there was anything he could do to help. I reminded him that 1, he didn't like Jim, 2, he wasn't a cop, and 3, the growing tear in his right meniscus would hamper any quick escape. He tried to argue, but my no means no stare backed him down. Since then, we've kept watch on the place. All the neighbors have. We're not a close-knit community by any stretch, but when something strange like this happens, it fires up the gossip machine. That machine forges instant connections. Neighbors become closer, if for no other reason than to get the latest scoop. Nobody knew what had happened, but everyone had a theory. Everything from con men to poltergeists was given consideration, but the plot most of the neighborhood settled on was some kind of violent struggle related to the drug trade, and boy, did the rumor mill churn. Nobody is that perky all the time. Has to be cocaine abuse. I heard he was a trained assassin for the cartels. Didn't they move from Miami? Makes you think, no? J and J being drug mules never sat right with us. Jim and Joy were a lot of things. Affable, annoyingly upbeat. Instagram pretty, but violent druggies isn't how I'd describe them. That'd be like finding out your toy poodle was a serial killer. Besides, they were the couple your parents compared you to. Be more like them. They have it all figured out, dear. The default couple photo that comes with every picture frame. The goddamn blueprint for modern suburban happiness. These kinds of people don't flee in terror in the middle of the night and never return. Something spooked them. They were spies, Frank, our crotchety neighbor, declared the other night. Nobody asked him for his thoughts, but, as stated by old person law, he saw 2 people minding their own business and felt compelled to interject his opinion. We stopped our nightly walk and turned to the man. What? I said, letting my annoyance creep into my words. I felt Noah's elbow pop me in my ribs, letting me know the tone didn't go unnoticed. Spies. Get those ears cleaned out, he said. What were you saying about the neighbors now? Noah said. Those people were probably spies that got called back. One day, they're mowing the lawn too goddamn early in the morning. Next, they're having cocktails in a bar in some third world hellhole. Like Florida, Noah joked. Frank snorted. Whole damn world's been turned upside down. Wasn't like this when I was a kid. The generational lament, Noah joked. Didn't people say they heard them screaming like they'd been spooked? Sure, but they were the ones doing the spooking, I guarantee it. We've heard their place was maybe haunted, I said. Frank laughed. Spectres? Please. A bunch of hoo-hash. He looked at Noah. Have you never folded a flag before? Noah shrugged. No, never had one. Part of the problem right there, Frank said. You just hold the edges and I'll do the hard work. Generational lament, I echoed. Noah gave me a look but chased it with a sly smile. Frank didn't hear anything because a woman was speaking, or at least that was my take on the subject. You live next to them. You ever notice anything off? Noah asked Frank. There was a lot of nighttime activity, a lot of prowling, night conversations, movement in the house and yard. Night conversations? Noah asked. What does that mean? Whispering in the backyard. Wasn't in English, so I have no idea what they were saying, but it was constant, every night. What language was it? I only speak English, so I have no clue. Just another data fact that points to them being spies. Have you seen anyone go inside since they left? No, Frank said. Outside the police, nobody has even stopped by. I keep an eye on the place. 2, just in case their handlers visit. I know a few people connected with the company, if you know who I mean. Do you know Sears or Roebuck? I asked. It fell on deaf ears and was the conversation ender I'd been hoping it was. Frank told us he'd keep us in the loop if anyone came by and headed back off to his house, the flag tucked under his arm. Noah gave me a look. Sears and Roebuck? You sound older than Frank. I was meeting him on his level. I said with a shrug. You think J&J were a pair of spies? No way, he said. Spies are supposed to blend in with the local population. J&J were the trendsetters in this place. They planted begonias, and soon houses all along the street followed suit. I love that you noticed that. He shrugged. My point is, you can't blend into the scenery if you're building it. Did you learn this from your years in counter-surveillance at Langley, or... Shh, he said, wrapping his arm around my waist as we made our way up the driveway. You'll blow my cover, and Frank knows people in the company. I laughed and tried my best to affect a Russian accent. Do you need me to call my friends in Moscow to resolve this Frank situation? It was Noah's turn to cackle. That's your Russian accent? Forgive me, I said with a wink. I've been on assignment in America for far too long. We went inside and started cooking dinner. While I was simmering a sauce, there was a knock on the door. I glanced over at Noah and gave him a confused look. We weren't expecting anyone, especially later in the evening. Noah opened the front door to reveal Melissa, the mousy-looking neighbor 2 doors down. I could count on my hands the number of times we'd spoken, but I knew that she and Joy had hit it off. Usually a cute woman, Melissa now looked like she'd just gone 10 rounds in the octagon, nervous, sweaty, and jittery, kind of like an addict needing a fix. Maybe J&J were drug dealers after all. Hi, I don't know if we've formally met, but I'm Melissa. I live 2 houses down, in the white one with the red trim, begonias in the front. Oh yeah, Noah said. I love your landscaping. Bold move with the begonias. Oh, thanks, she said, pushing her glasses up her nose. You okay, Melissa? I asked, coming into view behind Noah. Oh, well, not really. No, she said with a nervous laugh. I'm actually a little freaked out right now, to tell the truth. Please come in, I said, nudging Noah away from the door. I don't want to interrupt your dinner plans or anything, she said, quickly glancing across the street at the abandoned house. She did it a few times, actually, small glances, like she was worried someone was watching her. Maybe Frank's spies were on the case. Noah was already delaying it by messing around on his phone. Come in, please. Take a seat. Need something to drink? Water? Seltzer? Maybe a shot of something, she joked, but I got the sense she was serious. She was skittish. Her hands kept moving for no other reason than to stay busy. A person on the brink of a nervous breakdown pretending the world around them isn't burning to ash. I can do that. We have some good booze. Or maybe wine. I have a bottle I've been wanting to try, I said, reaching into the cabinet and pulling out 2 glasses. If you don't mind, she said, her gaze flitting between me and the floor. You're doing me a favor, Noah. Can you keep an eye on the pan? He nodded and continued the tedious job of slowly stirring the bubbling red sauce. Did you plan the landscaping yourself, or did you hire out? He asked, a bubble popping and leaving a red ring on the stovetop. What? Oh, sorry, Melissa said. Sorry, I did it myself. I took an online course about it. Noah has raved about it since you put it in, I said, bringing the bottle over and popping the top. We want to do something, but haven't decided on what. She took the glass from me and downed it in one gulp. She placed the glass down and slid it toward me. I refilled. What's going on? Melissa took the glass and downed it again. I had to imagine it burned going down, but her face gave away nothing other than fear. It's going to sound weird, but I promise you I'm not crazy or anything. You're in a safe space, I told her, my voice softening. I nodded down at the glass, but she waved me away. So, you know about Joy and Jim, right? They used to live across from you. Is this about them fleeing in the middle of the night? She nodded. Tears formed in the corners of her eyes. She tried to play it off like nothing was there, but I handed her a napkin, and her facade broke. Thank you. Yes, the ones who left a few weeks ago. Are they okay? They're better now, but still frazzled. Melissa said, I don't think they'll ever be the same. To be honest, I don't know if I will either. This got Noah to turn down the burners and switch his attention from the sauce to the tea. What happened to them? He asked. It started the day they moved in. Little things, strange noises, cold spots, things getting misplaced, that kind of stuff. But then it got worse. Chairs sliding around the kitchen floor, doors slamming at all hours of the night, whispers in the dark, phantom touches on the arm. Smell of cigarette smoke wafting through the house, she said, her voice shaky. Then they saw him. Who? She slid her glass towards me again. I refilled it and realized that this woman had put down most of this before I'd even had a sip. I should have started with the $2 chuck and not something I actually wanted to drink. Regardless, Melissa was rattled. If liquid courage helped unlock the mystery, bottoms up. They called him the Drover. The what? I asked. Drover, Noah said. It's a rancher. I gave him a confused look, and he shrugged. Years of horse camp. I had no idea Noah had ever even ridden a horse, let alone attended years of horse camp, and I planned to find all that out later, but right now my attention was on the potentially haunted house across the way from my own. Melissa had asked me not to think she was crazy before she spoke, but I was struggling with that idea at the moment. Once he made himself visible, the attacks became more frequent, more violent, specifically to Joy. The Drover would push them, trip them. He scratched Joy across the back so deeply that it left bloody wounds. Jim was nearly shoved down the basement stairs. Jesus, I said. They kept a brave face on in public, but to me, they broke down in tears. Joy was manic. She couldn't be home alone with it. When Jim went to work, she'd spend her days at the library or Starbucks. Why did they stay? I asked. They'd just bought the place. They were afraid they'd lose everything if they left, Melissa said with a shrug. Sunk cost fallacy, Noah diagnosed. I guess. They thought they could stick it out. I know they were contacting a priest to see if they could come and cleanse the house, but they were going to have to do it without attracting too much attention. Jim is trying to make partner at his firm. It'd be a mark against him if he started talking about how his house is haunted. Oh my God, Noah said. What happened the night they left? Melissa took a breath. They had just sat down for dinner when they heard the voices calling out for them from the pantry. They tried to ignore it, but when the voices started becoming agitated and threatening, Jim and Joy moved out into the living room. The Drover appeared down the hall. They tried to ignore it, but how do you do that? I can't even stop myself from throwing recyclables into the regular trash. I can't imagine trying to eat with a goddamn monster staring at me. They decided they couldn't either. They got up and left for the evening. When they got home around 1 in the morning, things were worse. Their couches had been flipped over. The chairs in the kitchen had been stacked on the table. Plates and bowls were smashed on the ground. As soon as they entered the house, they smelled cigarette smoke all around them. Then the Drover materialized directly in front of them. Oh fuck, I said, taking a long pull from my wine. Wow, this is tasty. She said he's hideous. He was there 1 second and gone the next. Then she felt his hands on her throat. Melissa stopped speaking. The silence was deafening. I finished my glass and poured another for both of us. Melissa took it and tipped it back. I followed suit. I could smell the sauce burning. Noah must have too, because before I could say anything, he rushed over and shut off the burner. Jim told me Joy couldn't breathe and turned blue. He tried to help, but there was nothing to do. He eventually laid on top of his wife to try and break any connection between her and the Drover. It worked. She caught her breath, but the Drover wasn't finished. Jim felt a burning sensation on his back. They smelled burning flesh. The Drover had branded a star symbol on his shoulder. That's what did it. They ran out and haven't been back. We sat in stunned silence. Everyone in the neighborhood had been wrong. It wasn't drugs or spies or mob violence. It was an actual angry ghost. I suddenly understood why Melissa was hydroplaning the wine. Jesus fucking Christ, Noah finally said, breaking the tension. Are they okay? No. Did something happen tonight? I asked. Again, tears formed at the corners of her eyes. I reached out and touched her hand, letting her know she was safe here, no judgment. A tear fell, and Melissa nodded yes. I didn't want to pry, but I assumed the reason she was over here was that something had happened. She'd either tell me or not. Joy called me this afternoon and asked a huge favor. She asked if I could go into their room and grab some important paperwork for her. They needed it to sell the house. She said the activity was lowest in the late afternoon. I didn't want to do it, but that poor woman had gone through so much already. So I said, okay. You could have knocked me over with a feather if a ghost had choked me. I'd never ask anyone, let alone a casual neighbor friend, to go into the house. I was raised better than that. Melissa, as far as I was concerned, was a saint. If I had a vote in the papal conclave, she'd get it. What happened? Everything was fine. At first, I wasn't planning on staying long. I'd walk in, head to their bedroom, grab the files and run out. 10 minutes was the maximum amount of time I'd be in there. As soon as I entered, I felt the temperature shift. It was freezing. As I moved through the hallway, I heard whispers around me. What were they saying? I couldn't make anything out. It was like human vocal static, just sounds, but my brain knew they were voices. I pushed past and went into their bedroom. I rifled through their dresser until I found the paperwork I needed. Then the smell hit my nostrils, cigarette smoke. As I turned to leave, the Drover, her voice caught. She waited a beat, collected herself, and continued. He was standing in the doorway, a shadow in the shape of a man in a hat, just watching. He disappeared, and I felt fingertips dragging up my arm. I ran out and came over here. I don't know why. I needed to feel safe or check my sanity or... Melissa put her head on the counter and broke down into sobs. I moved from where I was standing and wrapped her in a supportive hug. She was trembling. I said nothing. I wanted her to know that she had our support. She stayed that way for damn near 5 minutes, letting all the trauma come pouring out of her. When she had cried out all her tears, she thanked me and sat up. Her face was puffy and her eyes red from the salty tears. "You're safe now," I said. "No," she said. "I'm not. None of us are. Before I left, I heard him say to stay off his land, all of it. I think he was talking about the neighborhood." "Why would you think that?" Noah asked. "This whole area used to be one big ranch. You can find old maps online. I don't know what he meant, to be honest, but I wanted to let you know. You're right across the street. You could be next." Once she breathed those words into existence, they found a home in the holy hell. What the fuck? Fear region of my brain. I escaped my growing dread long enough to tell her she was always welcome here. Melissa stayed for a bit longer, collecting herself. Noah offered to escort her home, which she gladly accepted. I can't say I blame her. Not only is Noah a looker, but if a haunted ranch hand were threatening me, I'd have a buddy with me at all times. While he was gone, I pulled out my laptop and started searching. Dinner was going to have to wait. We'd ruined the sauce anyway. I needed to know if a haunted rancher was going to come into my house and choke me out. By the time Noah returned, I'd found what purported to be a map of this area from the late 1800s. With a little Photoshop wizardry, I placed the old map on top of a modern one. Sure enough, our neighborhood was smack dab in the middle of Badwater Ranch. J&J's home was labeled as the boss's house. I showed Noah. He frowned. Badwater doesn't exactly portend good things. "Does it?" "Not really," I said. "How was Melissa when she got home?" "Little better. The wine helped calm her down, but also made the trek longer than normal. We did more weaving than walking. She gave me the link to that landscaping course. Though, fantastic. The flowers that grow on our graves will look lovely." "You honestly think that thing is going to come over here?" "If we agree that there is already a ghost over there, then it crossing the road to our place isn't a gigantic leap in logic." He nodded. "Should we go over there and see if anything is there?" I knew this was coming. Noah had wanted to go check things out from the jump. Now that there was a spooky story attached to J&J's departure, the drive to go check it out would be full bore. I had zero desire to see what was what inside their haunted abode, nor did I want my husband poking around. "No," I said, "I don't want to invite this thing over." "Assuming there is a thing, which we won't know until we check it out." "Noah," I said, narrowing my gaze. "Seriously, that lady told us it nearly choked Joy to death. We really want to go pissing a violent ghost off." He held up his hands to show his surrender. "Okay, fine. You're sticking to your guns on this one." "Huh?" I pointed my finger gun square at his chest. "I'd rather you not die if I can help it," I said, holstering my hands. He walked over and kissed me on the forehead. What a lovely sentiment. "I'm sappy like that," I said, leaning into him. "Is dinner salvageable?" Noah looked back and shrugged. "How do you feel about pizza?" About 40 minutes later, 10 after the app's promised delivery time, Noah looked out of our blinds and saw the pizza guy pull into J&J's driveway. The scruffy-looking man walked up to the front door, pies in hand, and was about to knock on the door when it swung open. The pizza guy was talking to somebody inside the house, but Noah couldn't see who. "Pilar, did someone sneak into J&J's house when we weren't looking?" "What?" "Arju is talking to someone over there." "Who's Arju?" "The guy delivering our food. Don't you ever check the app?" I pulled myself from my book and walked over to Noah. "Why is the pizza guy over there at all? Maybe he got the wrong address." I glanced out and, sure enough, Arju the pizza guy was chatting with someone just out of view. I looked at Noah. "Did J&J come back? Is Melissa over there again?" "I dunno." "Go say something," I said, prodding him. He could be walking into a dangerous situation. "I thought you didn't want me going over there," he asked, already heading toward the door. "I'm not heartless. Go save Arju." Noah opened the door, and I peered back out the window. We both saw, in our shared horror, the pizza guy walk into the house. The door slammed shut behind him. "Oh shit," Noah said, sprinting over there. Even though every fiber in my body told me to stay, I couldn't let the love of my life go running into a ghost house alone. I put on my big girl pants and ran after Noah. I wouldn't let him face down the drover without me. I caught up with him as he reached their porch. He didn't seem surprised to see me tagging along. Noah walked up to the front door and touched the handle. He instantly yanked his hand back, waving it painfully in the air. "What?" "It's hot," he said. "Fire?" "I don't smell or see a fire," he said. He glanced down at his hand and his jaw dropped. He held up his palm to show me, and I felt my heart skip a beat. A small star had been burned into his skin, like the drover had branded him. "Fuck this guy," he said. He took a step back, squared his shoulder, and rammed into the door. Or he would have, if the door hadn't suddenly swung open and sent him tumbling into the house. I went to follow him, but the door slammed in my face. "Noah!" Despite just watching him burn his hand on the door handle, out of instinct, I grabbed at it too. It was ice cold. I turned it and pressed against the door, but it didn't budge. I took a step back and kicked it. All that did was send waves of pain up my leg. Still, I gave it another go. It still didn't budge. Not wanting to try a third time and find myself tumbling into the abyss, I ran around to the backyard and looked for another way in. To no one's surprise, J&J's backyard was a Homes and Gardens quality retreat, exquisitely designed with top-end patio furniture, a wet bar, and, I shit you not, an actual authentic brick pizza oven. I sprinted to their ornate French doors and yanked on the handles, expecting them to be locked. Amazingly, they were unlocked. Opening the doors like the Sun King, I strolled into the house and felt the cold instantly. I called out for Noah, but he didn't respond. Neither did Arju. I felt bad for him. I delivered pizzas in the past, and it's already a thankless job. Throw being trapped in a haunted house by an angry ghost into the mix, and it might be the worst job imaginable. Even little Caesar would tuck toga and run away. I made my way to the front door, but nobody was there either. The pizza boxes were even missing. None of this made sense. Where the hell could they have gone? I called out again for Noah, but didn't hear him. But I heard something. Whispers all around me like bees near honey. Melissa had called it human vocal static, and that was apt. The whispers sounded like what I imagined English sounded like to foreign ears. Noises that would make sense if God just turned the dial a little to the right or left. My nose caught a scent that regrettably wasn't pepperoni. Cigarette smoke. Both of my parents smoked for years, and I've always hated that specific stink. All this did was piss me off. The smell transported me back to sitting with my father, sick with cancer, lamenting that the hospital wouldn't let him smoke anymore. "I don't care that you're here," I said to the empty room. My voice echoed off the walls. "I'm here to get Noah and the pizza guy, and you're not going to stop me. This isn't your home anymore. Hell, you're not even alive. There hasn't been a ranch here in 100 years. There's nothing you can do that's going to stop me from helping my loved one. And Arju, the pizza guy." The power cut off. Begrudgingly, I had to give the drover credit. That was a good way to stop me from finding these two. "Pilar! Pilar! Help!" It was Noah, and his screaming was coming from under the house. I didn't know this place had a basement. No one else in this area did. If it was anything like the backyard, I imagined I'd be stepping into an aristocrat's apartment. "Please! Help!" came another voice that I assumed was Arju. I felt horrible that he had blundered into this entire ordeal. His tip would have to be biblical to atone for all of this. Exorbitant tipping, another legitimate reason to hate the drover. I scanned the room for the stairs to the basement. Not that I was excited about the prospect, but I knew if Noah were down there, I'd soon be. I wasn't even sure how they got down there in the first place. But when an angry ghost is haunting your neighbor's house and nearly killed the last occupants, you don't question odd shit. It's par for the course, and in that moment I felt like Tiger Woods. The cigarette smell swirled all around me, and I had to assume the drover was on the move. The whispers started again, louder this time, clearer too. While there weren't a bunch of coherent phrases, every once in a while, an actual word slipped through the static and found my ears. Death, leave, torture were among the winners. I spied a door tucked away in the kitchen. That had to lead to the basement. I ripped it open and saw an ancient wooden staircase that seemed out of place in the home's interior. While the bones may have been made with classic river rock, the guts had been completely modernized. Why do all that and not change the stairs? "Pilar! Is that you? We're down here!" Noah yelled from the darkness. I patted for my phone, but I'd left it at home. I'd have to descend into the basement in the dark. Great. As I took my first step, I smelled cigarette smoke again. Melissa's story about Jim nearly being thrown down the stairs came back to me. I glanced over my shoulder, but didn't see the drover. I didn't want to stick around to find out if he showed up. Running down the stairs, my foot caught on something sticking out of the wall about halfway down. It was enough to throw off my balance. My body pitched forward, and I grabbed at the railing to keep myself from falling, but the time-worn wood splintered, and I went hurtling down the stairs in a heap. Throwing my left arm up to protect my face did little to limit the total damage, but it probably saved me from at least a broken nose. My cheek slammed into the corner of the step. I felt a cut open up and blood trickle from the wound because I cartwheeled down the stairs. The blood ran up and down my face, depending on where my head was at the moment. I hit the landing with a sickening thud. The air rushed from my lungs, and I heard my head smack onto the dirt floor. I saw stars, and my vision went blurry for a moment. My landing had kicked dirt off the floor, and I started coughing. Wait, dirt floor? Why in the world did this basement have a dirt floor? Unless this wasn't a basement but a root cellar. Of course, J&J were homesteading too, probably had homemade kimchi buried somewhere down here. Is this how a concussed brain processes thoughts? As I took a life-saving gulp of air, I sat up and shook the cobwebs from my head. Looking up the stairs, I felt my heart stop. Dozens of disembodied arms were coming out of the walls, their ghostly fingers extended, looking for another leg to grab. What the ever-loving fuck is going on? I heard myself say. From the top of the stairs, a figure rose from the floor. The drover. He was mostly in shadow, but I could see his blood-red eyes just below his hat brim. There were no whispers now. He didn't have to say a word. His appearance there said everything I needed to know. I was in danger. I kicked away from the bottom of the stairs and scooted across the dirt floor. As I did, the drover disappeared, and the door to the basement slammed shut. I was in total darkness. I felt the gritty dirt under my fingernails. I was trapped in an overgrown crawl space that had been here since the original pioneers laid down the first rock. Glancing up, I saw just how low the ceiling was. I didn't think I'd even be able to stand fully down here. I'd have to stoop to avoid cracking my head on the wood and pushing my concussed brain to NFL player levels. Noah, I whispered. Where are you? Over here, he called out. That's not helpful, I said. Where is here? Follow the sound of my voice. I turned to where I thought I'd heard him, but as I was trying to locate him, the whispers filled the crawl space. More aggressive, more angry, made finding Noah almost impossible. It was like they were in my ears. I started crawling toward the far wall, assuming they were there. Each time I moved, I kicked up more ancient dirt into my nostrils. I sneezed and coughed, but kept moving. Finally, through the noise, I heard Noah's voice calling for me. I was heading in the right direction. Pilar! Pilar! Can you hear me? Yes, I said, reaching out my hand. I felt his hand wrap around mine. He pulled me closer, then he started yanking at me, pulling way harder than he should be. His grip tightened, and I felt a burning sensation ripple across my skin. The cigarette smell returned. In the dark, I saw those blood-red eyes in front of me. The drover had me in his grasp and was pulling me into a dark corner of the cellar. I started screaming and tried yanking my hand back, but his grip was ironclad. I rolled onto my back and dug my feet into the dirt floor. It slowed him, but my shoes wouldn't catch. I kept sliding. Behind the drover, a swirling white light formed in the corner of the crawl space. At first, it looked like a candlelight flickering in a storm, but it kept growing and soon looked like a whirlpool of lightning. A portal. I didn't know where it led and had no intention of discovering that for myself. The swirling white opening provided enough light for me to see where Noah and Arju were being held. They were locked in an old coal storage area just below the remnants of an antique coal chute. Someone shoved a metal rod through the latch, trapping them inside. Noah was screaming for me and throwing himself at the bars, but they wouldn't budge. The whispers were so loud and omnipresent now that it was just a buzzing white noise. My eyes were laser-focused on the swirling storm in the corner. In the eye of the cellar hurricane, I glimpsed what looked like crackling flames. That's never a good sign. I needed to do something, and fast, or my life would literally slip away from me. Melissa had said that Jim had gotten on top of Joy to break the connection and stop the drover from choking her, but the drover had been invisible then. I saw him now, felt him. I wondered if feeling was a two-way street. I raised one of my legs off the ground and instantly felt myself being dragged faster toward the portal. With my leg free, I took dead aim at those blood-red eyes and kicked. I didn't expect to hit anything, but when the bottom of my foot hit something solid, I unleashed a Bruce Lee-level barrage of kicks. I chopped my free hand at his arm and felt his hold on me loosen. With my ass mere inches from the lip of the portal, I reared my leg back and called upon the spirit of every horse that had ever kicked a person in human history. I slammed my leg forward and landed a kick so hard between his eyes that his grip loosened enough for me to rip my arm away. I was free, well, free-ish. My kick knocked the drover back so far that his form got caught in the pull of the swirling light. He reached out for me again, but I scooted away from his desperate clawing. His hands landed in the dirt, his fingers carving little troughs as the gravitational pull of the portal sucked him deeper into its psychedelic light. I left the drover to struggle with whatever was going on and scrambled over to the cold storage bin. Noah and Arju were cheering as I knocked the bar from the latch, freeing them. Noah wrapped his arms around me, but I brushed him back. "Run now! Hug later." The three of us made our way to the stairwell. Before we went dashing up, though, we all skidded to a stop. There were hundreds of arms coming out of the walls now. They waved back and forth like seaweed in a strong current. There were substantially more than I'd seen just mere moments ago. If we went up the stairs and they grabbed us, where would they drag us off to? Back to the drover? To another portal? "Shit," I said. "What the fuck is this place?" Arju asked, his eyes wild. The whispers were frenzied now. I knew it was a response to the drover being yanked down into that portal. I wasn't sure if his anger stemmed from being dragged down or from the fact that he had failed to bring me with him. Was he working for something on the other side that needed a living woman for some unspeakable reason? Either way, I wasn't sticking around to find out. "Coal chute," I offered. "Too small," Arju said. I tried it. "There has to be a cellar door somewhere, right?" Noah said, his hands reaching the ceiling and feeling around. "This is an old house with a root cellar. There has to be one." "I've never noticed one outside the house," I said. "Maybe they sealed it up a long time ago." A sick, sinister laugh broke through the whispers, silencing our conversation. We all glanced back at the drover. Despite his straining, half of his body had disappeared into the portal, but he was fighting to free himself. His blood-red eyes watched our every move, plotting. "You can't leave, Rebecca. I told you, down here. No one will hear you or your worthless children scream," it said, cackling like a deranged madman. I didn't know who Rebecca was, but I was instantly on her side. The drover didn't become a monster after he died. He'd always been one. Death had only increased his power. "They're waiting for you down there. I'll drag all of you down with me." "The fuck you will," I said, my blood boiling. The surrounding dirt beneath our feet shook. I looked down just in time to see a tiny hand burst forth from the soil, and another, and another. They felt around for something to grab. "I'm never delivering pizza again. Tips ain't worth this shit," the pizza guy said in a panic. From the opposite side of the crawl space, Noah's hands found something that felt like a cellar door. He tried pushing up on it, but it didn't budge. He called Arju to help him. With their combined efforts, the buried cellar doors moved ever so slightly. I ran and helped. With the three of us straining, the doors briefly parted. Fresh dirt from above us fell through the crack. An old owner must have landscaped right over the cellar door, probably to keep whatever the fuck was down here trapped. With all of our attention on our escape route, we hadn't noticed that several child-sized figures had crawled out of the ground. I turned and saw half a dozen pairs of blue glowing eyes watching us. I screamed, which prompted the men to turn and add to my chorus of fear. "On three, give it everything you have," Noah said, readjusting his grip. 1, 2, 3 exclamation mark. We all shoved the doors. My arms strained against the wood, but the harder we pushed, the more I felt us breaking through. Dirt fell onto our heads in bucketfuls. We closed our eyes and gritted through it. Finally, moonlight was visible. With a last struggling push, the doors opened wide. The night sky was above us. Arju scrambled up through the hole first, nearly leaping straight out. He helped Noah out after. I turned and watched as the figure of a woman crawled out of the ground. The children moved to her, and she wrapped her arms around them. This had to be Rebecca and her children. She looked up, and we locked eyes. She nodded to me. I nodded back. "Pilar, what's the hold-up?" Before I reached for Noah and Arju's waiting hands, I watched as all the figures moved toward the drover. He struggled to free himself from the portal, but it was in vain. Rebecca and her brood surrounded him and kicked at his head and body. As I was being pulled up, I watched as the drover completely disappeared down into the portal. As soon as his hateful form was gone, the portal winked out. We crawled out of the hole in the ground and scurried away from it as fast as our exhausted bodies could move. We made it out to the lawn, where Noah and I collapsed. Arju didn't stick around. He ran to his car and took off like a bat out of hell. Noah and I lay on the grass and stared up at the night sky. I felt for his hand, found it, and intertwined our fingers. We didn't speak. There was nothing to say. We just looked up at the stars and let our bodies slowly recuperate. If anyone had looked out, we'd have looked like the druggies that J&J had sold their wares to. The tea would be piping hot among the neighbors. I was too emotionally drained to care. What finally got us moving was the sprinkler system turning on. The ice-cold water hitting our skin made us jump up like firecrackers. We moved to the driveway, but it was no use. We got soaked. Noah and I locked eyes and started laughing, just pure, unhinged cackling that echoed down the street. What the hell is going on here? It was Frank, holding a bag of trash and looking confused. He glanced at us and shook his head. You two on drugs? Not yet, I said, pushing my wet hair out of my face, but I'm hoping to change that soon. Pilar, Noah snapped. Listen, you two want to use devil's lettuce. Do it in your own home, not on your neighbor's lawn, Frank said. I'm going to throw this trash bag away. Don't be here when I get back. I know a guy on the force and he'll drop everything to help me. Frank was a lot of things, but a jokester wasn't one of them. He would absolutely call the cops on us tonight and then engage us in conversation tomorrow during our walk, as if nothing had happened. Thus is the way of the wild boomer. In the days since, things have calmed down over there. Melissa had to go back and get something else for J&J, and reported she felt nothing this time. I thought it was ridiculous to go back at all, but whatever. Maybe she was truly running for Pope. She told us movers were coming at the end of the month, and it'd be hitting the market not long after. The drover was gone. No clue where he went. I don't know why he tried dragging me down with him. I don't understand why he was so violent. I saw his face as he was being yanked down. I saw fear in his eyes. The same fear he saw in the people he'd tortured and hurt and killed over the decades. Sometimes when I'm feeling down, I think about his horrified face, and it never fails to brighten my day. The other night, as Noah and I were coming in from our nightly walks, I glanced over at J&J's place. In the living room window, I saw Rebecca's blue eyes staring out at me. I nodded at her, and she nodded back, solidarity across time and dimensions. Soon, child-sized shadows joined her. Their bright blue eyes shone in the evening's purple light. Some even waved. I waved back and felt a stirring in my chest. Those poor, tormented souls finally found the peace they had lacked during their lives. I looked at Noah, who was holding the door open for me. The man never raised his voice to me, never treated me as a lesser, never locked me in a root cellar coal chamber. I walked to him and gave him a tight hug. He was surprised, but eventually melted into me. He was my dude in good times and bad. Hot damn, how lucky was I. Story 2. Take a look at this, Rob, Lee said, as he set the strange little metallic object on the table in front of me. It was a small metal cube, like a die, except its top came to a slight point. In the center, a tiny sphere sat, something like a miniature wind spinner. I gave Lee a questioning look. I had no idea what the hell he'd just put down in front of me. Was this the big deal he'd dragged me over for after work? And what exactly is it? I broke the silence when I realized even Lee didn't seem to know what to say. I'm not exactly sure, he admitted, scratching the back of his head, but I'll show you soon. We just need to get ready. Ready for what? I asked, still wearing my annoyed expression. Lee and I had been friends forever. I knew him too well. He'd dragged me into more stupid crap than I could count. Most of the times we got in trouble back in high school had been because of his ideas. And judging by that familiar look on his face, he was up to something bad again. So, this thing, Lee said, sitting down across from me on the couch, it's something really special. Lee, I sighed tiredly, it's a metal cube with a spinning thing in the middle. Don't waste my time. Wait, Rob, he said quickly as I started to stand up. Just give me a minute, okay? Please. Lee, I sighed again. I've got a lot to do at home. I don't have time for this right now. 1 minute, he said, raising a finger. Just 1 minute, and I'll show you something amazing. I let out a heavy breath and dropped back into Lee's armchair. Fine, I thought. 1 minute couldn't hurt. A wide grin spread across Lee's face. He practically glowed with excitement. Then, carefully, he set the silver cube in the middle of the table so we could both see the tiny, shining sphere resting at its center. He reached out and gave it a light flick with his fingertip. The little sphere began to spin on its axis, turning like a tiny weather vane, and I just stared, mesmerized. I just stared at the spinning little silver sphere. It kept turning and turning, unstoppable. The light from the lamps shimmered brilliantly across its surface. It gave me the feeling that it was spinning faster and faster. Maybe it actually was. I watched it, holding my breath, afraid to even move. Why it felt so good, I couldn't have said, but it did. The whole thing had the same pull as the moment before something wonderful happens. Not fear, not anxiety. More like when a kid waits for Christmas morning, or when you're about to see your parents after years apart. And then I felt it, deep inside. Like the most beautiful thing in the world had suddenly bloomed inside me. A wave of peace washed over me, but not the kind you get when you curl up with your favorite movie on a cold winter night. This was deeper. The kind of peace that makes the world around you freeze, makes you wish this moment, this exact feeling, could last forever. The little sphere no longer spun. It flickered instead, moving so fast it had become a single blur of light. And in that glow, I saw what must have been the source of that warmth, of that impossible happiness. A breathtaking place unfolded before me. The sun was bright and gentle. The breeze carried the sweet scent of flowers. It was like a perfect dream, one you'd want to live in forever. Then a melody rose, tiny bells chiming softly, delicately, their sound just right, soothing to the ears, comforting to the soul. I felt myself lifting off the ground, soaring among the clouds, resting on the soft, endless sky. Jesus Christ, what the fuck? Lee shouted angrily. That snapped me back to reality. My eyes burned. I thought they might burst right out of my skull. It felt like I'd been staring into a TV screen for hours, far too close, without blinking. But it wasn't my eyes that hurt the most. It was my soul. It felt like my childhood dog had just died. And I knew I could never be happy again. Not unless I could look at that spinning thing one more time. "Rob!" Lee yelled. "Rob! Snap out of it. It's 9 in the morning." What? I croaked, my mouth dry. Morning? What do you mean, morning? The morning sunlight really was shining through Lee's windows. But how the hell could it be morning when I'd come over late in the afternoon, and I'd only been here for a few minutes? "Rob, come on already," Lee urged again. We were heading toward the elevator, but I was still wrestling with my coat as we walked. "God damn it, I'm late, so fucking late," Lee kept grumbling, his voice sharp with panic. "You're telling me?" I snapped, stepping into the elevator. "What the hell did you do to us, Lee? Why the fuck do you always have to drag me into this kind of bullshit?" "I don't know, Rob. I really don't know," Lee muttered, sounding guilty. When the elevator doors opened, he only paused long enough to mumble another quick apology before bolting toward his car. I headed for mine. At that point, it didn't matter if I was 1 hour late or 2. I was in a lousy mood anyway. The whole day was a complete mess. I felt empty, like something inside me was missing, like I'd lost something important, something I couldn't name. I don't usually smoke much, but today I went outside at least 8 times just to take the edge off that emptiness. It didn't help. If anything, the exhaustion made it worse. I must have stared at that damn thing all night, and now only coffee was keeping me alive. That afternoon, Lee called me. He apologized again, saying he had no idea what had happened. He said he'd just been staring at the thing, and the next thing he knew, it was morning and his boss was blowing up his phone, wondering where the hell he was. I believed his story. I knew he wasn't telling me everything, but honestly, I didn't care. Nothing really mattered that day anyway. But when he asked if I wanted to come over again that evening, I said yes, without a second thought. I was sipping a tall glass of cold beer. I'd brought it for Lee when I arrived. He was already buzzing with excitement. He'd set everything up: water, snacks, soft pillows on the couch and in the armchair. It felt like he was preparing for something. "Lee," I asked after another sip, "what the hell is that thing?" Lee just smiled warmly and offered me a bag of chips. I took a handful. "This," he said, lifting a finger dramatically, "this, my dear Robert, is the gateway to happiness." I rolled my eyes again. Lee could be so damn theatrical it made my skin crawl. But still, something tickled at the back of my mind. What if he was telling the truth? "You don't believe me?" he asked with a friendly scowl. "Wasn't yesterday's little demonstration enough for you?" I don't know," I lied, to him and to myself. "I don't even know what I saw." Lee gave me that knowing smile, then jumped up from the couch. He opened one of the cabinets and took out the little silver cube again. He placed it on the coffee table with the care of someone handling a sacred relic. I couldn't take my eyes off the thing. I kept stealing glances at it like it was some kind of miracle, finishing the last of my beer without even realizing. "What the hell is it, Lee?" I asked, swallowing hard. "Where did you even get it?" Lee chuckled and flopped back down onto the couch. "I have no idea, Rob," he said with a shrug. "Picked it up at the flea market downtown." And what are we even seeing in there? I pressed. I don't know, he repeated, but it's something beautiful. Feels like pure happiness, like looking straight through the gates of heaven. I listened to him, deep in thought. Lee could be convincing when he wanted to be, but something about the way he talked, about the way that thing felt, made me uneasy. The little spinner really was the most incredible thing I'd ever seen, but now it scared me a little too. Lee, I interrupted his rambling, how long have you been watching that thing? Lee's face darkened. A few weeks, he stammered. At first I wanted to keep it to myself, you know, but then I started to feel like others needed to see it too. Maybe we shouldn't be doing this anymore, I said, unsettled by his words. Rob, please, Lee said nervously. Just once more. Watch it with me and you'll understand. Just once. I hesitated. I wanted to see it again, to hear the chiming, see the light, feel that perfect, blissful warmth again, but I was afraid. In the end, it didn't matter. Before I could even answer, Lee had already moved. He flicked the little sphere with his fingertip, and it began to spin once more. The little silver sphere spun again. The light shimmered across its surface, blurred and dazzling, and a wave of pure bliss washed over me. It was heavenly, ecstatic, just like before. It felt as if gentle hands were stroking my soul, as if every perfect moment of my life were happening all at once. Tiny lights glittered like the first rays of dawn. Beauty made tangible, paradise brought to earth. I couldn't take my eyes off it. The lights grew brighter, softer, more perfect. And then the bells came again, their golden chimes so sweet you could listen to them for the rest of your life. They rang softly, peacefully, as if they were playing right there around me. I could see it now, a radiant place filled with light, a massive golden gate, shining so brilliantly you'd want to curl up at its base and live there forever. I just stared, lost, unable to look away. My soul drifted high above the clouds. The golden gate loomed before my eyes. Then, something changed. Dark clouds began to gather, slowly covering the gate. I strained to see, desperate to hold on to that beauty, that perfect joy. But it was fading. Black clouds surrounded me. The sweet scent of the breeze turned foul, reeking of decay. And still, I couldn't look away from the spinning device. I just kept staring. The chimes grew fainter and fainter until they were gone, replaced by the sound of crying, screaming. Then came a low, rumbling voice, growling words I couldn't understand. I came to when someone shook me gently. "Sir, what happened?" a stranger's voice said. "Are you okay?" My vision was blurry. I could only make out vague shapes in the room. I was choking, my body locked tight, every muscle twisted into a cramp. I couldn't move. People were shouting, but I could barely hear what they said. My ears rang. The world spun around me. "Paramedics are here!" someone yelled. "Everyone, move aside!" Paramedics, I thought, confused. Then everything went dark and my mind sank deep into the void. I woke up in a daze. It felt like a veil had been draped over my eyes. Everything was hazy, melting together into shapeless blurs. "Ah, finally awake," said an unfamiliar voice. Where?" I croaked. "Where am I?" "You're in the hospital, Mr. Robert," said a woman's voice. "Can you tell me what you and your friend took?" "What took?" I muttered, my mouth dry as sandpaper. "I'm your doctor, Robert," she continued calmly. "You were brought here 2 days ago, both you and your friend. You're lucky the building manager had to check your friend's apartment, or you both would have died there." "What? What happened?" I tried to speak clearly, but my mind was foggy, and my body felt like it had been packed inside a heavy sack. They kept me in the hospital. I had no idea what to say, or even how to explain any of it. The doctors didn't seem to understand much either. We were severely dehydrated, showing all the signs of having sat motionless for days. Lee was the same, only his condition was worse. They had to keep him in a medically induced coma. Days passed. My vision slowly returned, and my mind began to piece things together. I could move again, mostly on my own. I still needed a cane, but at least I could walk. But the craving stayed. It never went away. I wanted to see it again, just once, just one more glimpse of the light. And as it turned out, Lee felt the same way, because Lee had vanished from the hospital without a trace. I knew where Lee had gone, back to his apartment, back for the device. He wanted it for himself, just like he'd said. Rage boiled in my chest. I couldn't believe my best friend would try to cheat me. That bastard Lee wanted the spinner all to himself. I lasted one more day in the hospital. The doctor wasn't happy about me leaving, but I couldn't stay. The thought of Lee taking that thing somewhere, hiding it away where I'd never see it again, it terrified me. I took a cab to Lee's place, slipped the driver 50 extra bucks just to make him go as fast as he could. Walking was hard. I hobbled my way up to Lee's apartment. The door was unlocked. The handle turned easily, and I stepped inside. The place was chaos. Furniture overturned, the room a complete wreck. The couch still held the faint imprint where we'd sat for days, staring at the spinning silver marvel. Only 2 pieces of furniture were left standing. The armchair, where Lee now sat, and the coffee table, where the little silver miracle rested. "Lee," I said when I saw him sitting there. "Jesus, Lee, I thought you'd run off with it." But Lee didn't answer. I moved closer. The silver device lay on the table. The little sphere wasn't spinning this time, but the whole thing seemed to pulse faintly. Lee's head had fallen back, his eyes fixed on the ceiling. I stepped right up to him and froze. Lee's grey, lifeless body had sunk deep into the chair. His skin was burned, scorched black in places. Where his eyes had been were now hollow, charred pits. Lee was dead. I didn't say a word, just stared at him, emotionless. Oddly enough, I felt calm, more annoyed than horrified, annoyed that I'd thought Lee might have taken the device. But now that he was dead, the little wonder was mine. Story 3. The villagers say a demon in our mountains grants wishes, but not for free. People here are all religious and superstitious. Our region is well known for its folklore legends, beings, good or evil, that inhabit the mountains, valleys, or large forests. My favorite is the story of the spirit called Koziar, a devil-like demon that resides in our mountains. He bears the look of a mountain goat with yellow gazing eyes that see through your soul. His hooves clatter on the mountain rocks in a melody that sounds like the clicking of bones. Koziar hides his true self behind a charming, patient facade. Soon, you would tell him all your darkest secrets and desires. He has the power to loosen anyone's tongue. The Koziar will then make you a proposition. He could make anything you wished come true. You wouldn't have to give anything in return, but if you wanted your agreement to be overturned, he would silence you, blind you, and deafen you to the world. Nearby, a king lived in a castle long ago. He didn't have a fondness for criminals. Any minor crime would be punished in the way of the Koziar. Gouging your eyes, pulling your tongue out, and pouring molten wax into your ears. He would then send the criminals to wander. The people from the surrounding villages would often find them still running in the mountains, making inhumane sounds. That's how the legend of Koziar was born. Not so long ago, I was at one of my neighbors' houses. We played cards and drank. The time passed so fast that I barely noticed the sun had gone down. I stood up, my whole world spun around, my vision blurred, and I started falling. We decided that it was time to put the bottle down. He helped me dress up, and I walked out of the front door. I thought I had walked the distance to my house, but wherever I looked, I only saw dark and tall rocks. I stumbled upon a small path that led up into the mountain. I sat on one of the rocks nearby and decided to cool off for a second. I was about to get up, but then I heard some faint cluttering. It sounded like an ossuary choir playing the parts of their fallen comrades as instruments. The melodic cracking of bones, the legends talked about. I looked up, and a mountain goat was standing above me. His hair was as dark as the night. His horns glowed under the starlight, and his eyes shone through the dark like sulfur. I jumped up. Cold sweat formed on my back, my feet started shivering, and I was breathing heavy. "Hello, dear traveler, what are you doing all the way up here?" His voice was soft and soothing. My feet stopped shivering almost immediately, and I was able to catch my breath. "You're not real," I whispered to myself. "Oh, I'm real. Can't you see me standing in front of you? Can't you hear my voice speaking to you?" I thought I was seeing things. I stood looking at it silently. "I'm not an illusion, my friend, and I know you know I'm not one. I've been with you your whole life, even if you didn't know it. I was deep inside of your heart, seeing all the troubles that you've experienced, all the misfortunes that the world laid on you. I can see how you were not treated well again. You wanted to enjoy a simple night with your friend, drinking your favorite drink over a deck of cards, and your own brain and stomach decided to turn on you, conspire against you. Let me help you, my friend." He tapped his hoof 3 times. A delicate sound echoed each time through the mountains. My vision cleared, I regained my balance, my head stopped thumping, and my stomach felt fine again. Unfortunately, I was not drunk anymore, but I felt well again, almost like I hadn't drunk any alcohol. "Who are you? Explain yourself," I yelled out at that thing with confusion in my voice. The creature standing on the rock mesmerized me. It made me feel like I was talking to a caring mother and the devil himself. "You know who I am. You always knew who I was. My name is unspeakable by the vocal cords, unwritable in any human language, but the people in your village gave me a name long ago. That name is Koziar, and perhaps you can tell that I already know your name, my dear friend, so no need to introduce yourself. Thank you for helping." "No need for thank yous, my friend. I will gladly do anything to ease your troubles." I felt like I could trust him with anything, that he would fix all my misfortunes. I only had to tell him. "Please don't hesitate. There's no reason to. It's only us standing here, you and me. Anything you need will be fixed. There's this woman I'm in love with. Her name is Hana. I've been in love with her for the past 40 years. Ever since we were children, I couldn't take my eyes off her. She is, and always was, beautiful. Her eyes are blue as the mountain creek, her golden hair shines in the sun, and her skin is soft as the forest's moss. She smiles like an angel, and her voice is like music to your ears. Unfortunately, she's married to another man, a carpenter from our village. He's a good man. Everyone respects him, but I can't. He took the love of my life from me. Not a day passed by that I didn't think of her. What's your wish then, my friend?" "My wish is for her to fall in love with me." "Your wish shall be granted, but remember what happens if you decide to reverse it." His voice now sounded rusted and crackling. Koziar then got down on 4 legs, bleated, and quickly ran away. I stood there for a moment, dazed like I woke up from a vivid dream. I didn't know if what I saw was real. When I walked into my living room, I hung my coat and went to bed, not even taking my clothes off. Soon after, I was fast asleep, dreaming. My whole village was burning down. People were running around screaming. Children, men, and women alike. Hana stood next to me. Her eyes glowed like the Koziar's. I screamed out for Koziar to take it all away, and then I woke up in complete darkness. I couldn't see, hear, or speak. I tried to feel around myself, but there was nothing around. I tried to run, but the ground turned to mud and I kept falling. I woke up in a pool of sweat. A fading sound of hooves knocking on rock echoed in my head. I could still feel the mud on my hands, but when I looked down, they were clean. I managed to calm myself down, but I still wasn't sure if my encounter with the Koziar yesterday was a hallucination or reality. I was eating lunch in my kitchen when I heard loud and frantic knocking at the door. One of my friends from the village was standing outside, panting. "Come, Hana's husband died, and she's asking for you. She won't let anyone else comfort her," he said, trying to catch his breath. I stood in the doorway, bewildered. As we ran to their house, my neighbor explained that Hana's husband didn't wake up this morning. Hana hasn't stopped crying since she found him, and she is asking for me and refusing any comforting from her sons or her mother. When I came into the house, she immediately ran to me and tried to hug me. She looked at me with her beautiful eyes, but I saw a shade of yellow glowing in that blue ocean. Her pupils bore a strange shape. I hesitated, but then I decided to embrace her. I could feel her tears running down my shoulder, but the longer I held her, the more she calmed down. Soon after, she stopped crying. I held onto her tighter, and she tightened her squeeze back. Was this the work of the Koziar? Did he make my wish come true? Was I not dreaming last night? Either way, Hana stood here now with a look of love in her face. When she let go, she was smiling with that beautiful smile of hers, holding onto my hands. I looked around me. Her family and other townsfolk standing in the room were staring at us in bewilderment and concern. I could feel their eyes stabbing through me. One of Hana's sons thanked me for helping them, but said that they would like to resolve this matter privately. Hana started protesting, but her mother dragged her away to the other room. I walked out the door, trying not to stare at anybody so that I wouldn't have to see the disapproving looks in their eyes. I felt the warmth rise and fall over my body. I felt bad for what her family had to go through, but did it really matter? Hana was mine now. Warnings of Koziar were forgotten. The idea that this unbelievable reality, this gift he blessed me with, could somehow turn against me was not possible. I woke up early the next morning. I looked out the window, rubbing my eyes, but the sun was not rising yet. I could remember a strange noise waking me up, but I couldn't hear anything now. I was about to go back to sleep, but then I heard it again, a faint knock on the door. I opened them, and on the other side stood Hana, her whole face lit up. What are you doing here? I couldn't wait to see you, my love. She pushed the door open and hugged me the same way she did the day before. She felt warm. Her hair smelled like I remembered, and I could feel her body pushing against mine. We stayed like this for a few minutes. I told her to come inside. I took her hand and sat her at my kitchen table. She watched my every move with that loving gaze as I fixed us coffee. My family was against my decision. They didn't want me to come here to you, but I rebelled. I knew I had to rebel. She kissed and embraced me. The evening came, and Hannah realized she didn't have any clothing for the next day. I was an old bachelor, and I had given out all the clothing from my late mother. I'm afraid we have to go back to my old house, my love. I'm afraid so too. We walked down to her house, and Hannah knocked. Her son opened the door. For a second, he had a look of relief, until he saw me standing behind Hannah. They argued for a while. He didn't want to let me in. Hannah managed to persuade him, but he said I couldn't go any further than the kitchen. We decided to agree on this. Hannah said she would soon be back and ran into her old bedroom. While I was waiting for Hannah, her other son came out of his room. Once he saw me standing in their kitchen, he froze for a second, his face twisted in anger. "What is he doing here?" He yelled at his younger brother. His brother tried to answer his question, but before he could finish, he turned to me and started walking towards me. "What have you done to our mother? You put a spell on her, you goddamn devil!" he screamed out. A feeling of dread filled my mind. Hannah and his younger brother tried to tell him to stop, but he got closer and pushed me against the wall. He now stood before me, digging into my chest with his finger, screaming in my face. I could see the tiredness in his eyes, the big black bags under them. His breath smelled, and he looked unclean. He didn't have it in him to take care of himself now, after his father's passing and his mother's departure. He was screaming in my face, but in his eyes I now saw more hurt than anger. For a second I started feeling bad for him. I now felt like a perpetrator of all of his problems. Maybe I should make Hannah return and let the family grieve. Quickly passed through my mind, but then I felt his fist strike my face. I could feel my ears ringing, and an iron taste of blood formed in my mouth. A dull pain pulsated in my left temple. My eyes quickly darted over the room. There was a pan sitting on the kitchen stove. I picked it up and struck him over the head. He fell to the ground. A pool of red blood poured out of his head. His eyes were open, but his stare was blank. The smell of iron filled the room. I murdered her child. The pan had his blood on the back. I slowly dropped it on the floor. The younger boy grabbed hold of his brother and tried to wake him back to life, but Hannah rushed to my side, making sure I was okay. He was screaming out his brother's name, shaking his lifeless body. Tears were pouring down his face as he hugged his brother's corpse, whispering to him, calling to God to bring him back. I don't think he was aware we were still in the kitchen. His shirt was now soaked with blood. The cries turned into faint, quiet sobs. I looked at Hannah, but there were no tears. Only the usual look of love now mixed with concern. I took her hand, and we ran. When we got to my house, I opened the door and sat down at my table, panting. "Oh, how they hurt you, my love. Why would anyone want to harm such a sweet man like you? Those evil men. I will never forgive either of them. Good thing you hurt that bastard. I'm proud of my strong and courageous man." I opened a bottle of brandy and sat down. With each drink, I started to realize what had happened. I have killed a man. My dream of Hannah being mine has been fulfilled, but at what cost? I didn't feel bad for her husband dying, but I didn't mean to bring death on her family by my own hand. Hannah didn't talk much while I continued to drink my problems away. I was glad she came to my rescue first, but her not being moved by her son's dying was unnatural. She just sat there across from me, looking deep into my eyes with love, or at least what seemed like love. She started humming a melody, one from my childhood that my mother used to sing before I went to bed. The drink slowly eased its way into my brain, and I started to relax. I could hear dogs barking from the village. They were louder today. Somewhere in the distance, a mountain goat bleated. I was almost falling asleep, but then I heard a strange noise. I ignored it at first, but it kept getting louder. I thought I heard my name called out. I looked out my window and there was no one around, but every second the noise kept getting louder. Now I was sure someone was calling for me. The ground thudded rhythmically. I rushed to the window again and saw my entire village with fire torches coming to my house. I ran to the door and bolted it shut, standing next to it, my legs shaking, trying to catch my breath. I knew why they came. A banging on the door echoed through the house. "Come out, we will break the door down if we have to." I didn't answer. "What's going on, my love?" Hannah whispered and came to my side. The look of love was now gone from her eyes, and so was the blueness. They now glowed sulphurously yellow, her pupils deformed into square-like shapes. She looked excited, happy with her work. I froze and stood next to the door in fear. Then the second bang came. This time, I didn't hesitate and quickly took off through the back door. My vision had blurred. I was breathing hard, trying to run as fast as I could. I didn't take Hannah with me. Whatever she has become, it was not the woman I once loved. For a second, I could hear thumping far in the distance, but as I ran into the forest, it slowly faded away. The adrenaline stopped, and I realized how exhausted I was. I saw a cave going inside the mountain. I fled into it, sat down, and wept. "I want to take my wish back," I yelled out. The clattering of the hooves echoed through the cave. The darkness was pierced by two glowing yellow balls approaching closer. A demonic voice spoke. "Haven't seen you in a while, my friend. I told you everything comes with a price. I think you owe me something now."